Fujifilm has just announced the new XH2s Pro Level APS-C camera, and they have ditched the dials. Today I'm going to tell you why I think they made the right move. What's up everyone, Pete Coco here, and we're talking all things Fujifilm again today. And I want to give you my thoughts on the new, just announced Fuji XH2s, specifically regarding their decision to ditch the analog control dials that we've all come to love so much on our retro-inspired Fujifilm cameras. Now, although I love my analog control dials, I have my X-T4 right here, I think that we are going to look back in hindsight and realize that Fuji made the right decision by deciding to ditch these dials on this series of cameras. And I'm going to tell you why right now. So first of all, you got to remember that Fujifilm has designed this camera to reach a wide audience, and they themselves call it a hybrid camera, meaning, like it or not for us as Fuji fanboys and fangirls, the camera is designed to appeal to still and video shooters. So I think their decision to give the camera a more modern design aesthetic and ditch the analog control dials is in large part to make it more appealing to a mass audience. Now, you might look at that as Fuji giving us, their loyal followers, a little knife in the back. I think it's a very wise move, and you have to remember that they're a company that needs to sell products, and they have to do what makes sense for the market. And I truly believe that because it's a hybrid camera and a camera that's going to be used by people who are shooting a ton of video and probably a lot of stills as well, or maybe even more video than stills, this is the better way to do it. Next, let's be honest. The analog control dials are just redundant. Now, although we love our dials, and they work great for us. And I love having analog dials on my X-T4. I love the fact that I can change the shutter speed and the aperture, and I do it the old-fashioned way, like I learned when I was a young go-getter with a Minolta SRT 101. Like it or not, these analog dials are completely redundant. As you know, we've got a front and back command dial that does the same thing. And technically it does it better because you can fine-tune all the settings with the command dial, and you can achieve settings that are not available on the physical wheels and dials. I personally don't think that most hybrid shooters who are doing a lot of video, as well as stills, really care about the analog dials. I think that might be a little bit of a bubble that we Fuji lovers are in. And now again, you can say they're giving us the old knife in the back, but I think that they're just trying to appeal to more people. Next, the analog dials are completely useless for video. If I take my X-T4, I hit the switch into movie mode. This does nothing. This does nothing. This does nothing. I have to control all the settings through the command dials. It makes a lot more sense to use the front and rear command dials to adjust your aperture, shutter speed, and your ISO. The other thing is that I've personally found that when shooting video with this camera, the analog dials can make it even more confusing. And I say that because you're thinking you're going to switch it with the dial, but then you have to not use the dial, and you have to use the screen, and you have to use the command dials instead of the analog dials. So it could actually get more confusing that way. Another thing that I'll add that people are upset about is that Fuji removed the push button nature of the front and rear command dial. So now it's just a spinning dial. You can't push it in to make a setting. I honestly don't care at all about that because I hate the push setting on these. And although it's a great concept, I find that it doesn't work well. And you gotta be careful when you're spinning these dials. Otherwise, you're gonna accidentally press it and register a setting. So I've never honestly thought that push dial has worked so well, even on my other Fuji camera. And I think they made the right decision by just making it a stronger weather sealed dial that spins. I'm sure many of you disagree with me in that because obviously it's great for convenience, but I didn't think it was so well executed, so I think they might be better off without it. Here's another reason why ditching the analog dials is a good idea. On the new camera, you have a large, easy to see and view LCD screen right on the top of the camera where you see everything. Unlike here, where you need to look at the rear screen or in the viewfinder to see what's going on. And I know some of you will say, well, the XH1 had dials as well as the LCD screen, so you're wrong about that. But it's still better just to get rid of the dials because it makes it less confusing. You're not looking in multiple places to find the same information. You have one screen that does it all. I think it's smart. I think it's wise. And I think they did the right thing. Now, the other analog switch besides the aperture, shutter speed, and ISO dial that people are freaking out about that they got rid of is this little guy on the front, your focus mode switch. And once again, I think they made the right choice, and here's why. I actually love this switch, and I know I sound like I'm ragging on the analog dials. Don't get me wrong. I love the analog dials. I use them probably like 90% of the time, so I'm not against the analog dials, and I understand why it's frustrating and angering to people. I do get it, so I don't want to be, too insensitive about that. But a problem with this dial that I've encountered on a few occasions is that it'll be pushed into the wrong mode accidentally sometimes. So I've noticed that sometimes I'll be on continuous and then I'll go to take a picture and it's been pushed to manual or it's been pushed to single or whatever. So I think, again, getting rid of that and just making a little customizable push button that you could still control the autofocus settings with is a good idea. In the front of our heads is that these are hybrid cameras now. I know a lot of people have already been commenting on my videos saying not every still shooter wants to shoot videos, giving me a lot of grief about that. But I think that you're wrong because the market is dictating what they do in the cameras, and I know that most people that I know nowadays, professionals and amateurs alike, are shooting a ton of both video and stills. Okay, and here's my last reason why I think that ditching those dials was a good idea. And I could be completely wrong about this, but I think that the analog dials are going to be preserved and the aesthetic and the functionality in whatever comes next in this line. So say in an XT5, you're going to have your analog dials. So they're going to give you the best of both worlds. You're just going to have to choose which camera fits you better. And having more options, although I thought at first, and I said in a previous video, I don't know if it's a good idea to have two versions of the XH2. Maybe it's going to be the best move in the long run. Time will tell. We'll see. Maybe even the XH2H, which it looks like it's going to be called, which is going to be the high-res version for film shooters. Maybe they'll preserve the dials on that. So I think before we have a collective aneurysm about it, we should just give Fuji the benefit of the doubt and just give them time to see what's coming out next, because I'm sure that they're going to make all of their fanboys and girls like us happy with our traditional cameras that we like. Now, if the AF is no good and they ditch the dials and all of that, then I think we could start getting a little miffed. But until then, let's be positive, see what else they're coming out with. I think that they've always made us happy in the past with their great cameras. And there's no perfect camera, so you're always going to have to make a compromise somewhere. Let's just see what they do. And that's all I got for you today. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel. Hit the like button. If you think I'm completely wrong, which many of you do, let me know in the comments below. And I will see you next time. Go out today. Have a great day. Take some awesome pictures. And I will see you soon. Bye, everyone.